My name is Brian Goll, and today I have the privilege of walking you through the valuable insights and takeaways I gleaned from my experience in Dr. Sloan's Mentoring and Supervision course. My hope is that some of the takeaways that I share with you today, you're able to take and apply to your professional context so that you, in fact, can take tangible strides in becoming that agent for change that we all aspire to be. I first want to begin by assessing my personal mentoring experience and what it was like serving as a mentor in the Impact program and what I learned about myself and about others along the way. Some of the most valuable aspects of my time in this mentoring and supervision course really focused on the building of uplifting, positive, affirming relationships. And this is where I have to give absolute credit to my fellow mentors who are in my impact group, Suzanne and Jessica. I thought the three of us really demonstrated how valuable and necessary authentic collaboration is when it comes to team building, when it comes to communicating a vision, when it comes to reaching a goal, or many goals in our case. So the spirit of collaboration really stemmed from a sense of faith and trust that we place in one another and an intentional effort to try to serve those in our impact group. And so the building of relationships, the necessity for collaboration, the importance of collaboration, and perhaps more importantly, from this collaboration, I really came to value the spark of creativity. There is so much value, there is so much good when we take the time to authentically listen to each other and to ask questions and to seek clarification. I know that in my experience, when I was working on a presentation for my mentee group, Jessica and Suzanne did a wonderful job of pushing me to think about how to apply the topic I was addressing to the mentee's current experiences. And so I think really one of the most valuable aspects of my time in this course is that it made me think of ways to reach people. It made me think of ways to be creative and to really invite people into a creative space. When I think about this mentoring experience I've had at the end of this Baylor program, I think the most notable component of growth that I've come to discover is really genuinely listening to the needs of those around me. One of the targeted skills I focused on during my time in this course was the art of listening. And listening for me was a challenge. I'm one who tends to gravitate towards solutions, who wants to find quick, legitimate fixes to problems. But this course stretched me in my ability to listen. It allowed me to take in people's opinions and to make sense of them and to really listen before I acted. In fact, the growth that I demonstrated this year in my ability to listen really stemmed from the literature that I read in this course, You're Not Listening by journalist Kate Murphy. And in this text, she really outlines ways in which we've lost the art of listening. And one way that we can try to reclaim it is by setting aside distractions and by valuing one another's time and insight. And so that means when I met with Jessica and Suzanne, or I met with my mentees, that they were, in fact, the most important people in my life at that time. And I treated them with reverence, with respect, with admiration, and with a real sense of belonging. And I think that at its core allows me to listen more effectively. And I know that that came to be very true for me. What I really appreciate about this class is that it fostered authentic listening and my ability to develop listening skills. I thought working with Jessica and Suzanne, I was able to first glean their insights about various topics we would address with our mentees before ever acting on my own. I think one of the key aspects about listening is that you have to create a very mindful space to be willing to take in another person's perspective. And in our collaborative sessions, when we would plan our mentee sessions, I found Jessica and Suzanne to give me such insightful, thoughtful insight about how to reach our mentees. And so, really understanding the value of listening motivated me to grow in that area. And in fact, I think back to Axelrod and in his text where he talks about the value of collaboration and how listening has a way of transforming a team. Well, in my experience, listening had a way of transforming my heart and transforming my approach to being more attentive to the needs and opinions of others. When I think of opportunities for improvement in developing and training mentors, I think about developing more of a library of resources, some helpful exemplars of what maybe previous mentors created in an effort to try to reach their mentees. Whether this was a presentation over a topic such as a theoretical framework or a literature review or data collection, or even as simply as playful, energetic games that they would use that people would use to try to get to know their mentees in a more legitimate way, in a more authentic way. And so if I think through an area of improvement moving forward, it would be to be a bit more intentional in the way that I reached out to our mentees and try to develop the building blocks of a genuine relationship earlier on and being really, really intentional about the development of that relationship. When I think about the value of this course, I really legitimately think of Kate Murphy's book, that You're Not Listening, because every session I have with my mentee and every prepping session that I had with my fellow mentors, I had a chance to practically apply insights of listening authentically. And what I found is I don't have to have all the answers as a mentor. No one expects me to have all the answers. There are many times that I found that there is value in me swallowing my pride and being humble and listening first and allowing someone's insight and perspective to shape mine or to challenge mine so that I am better able to serve those around me. And so it's incredible how the mentoring experience to me was a celebration of community, a celebration of mutual learning. It wasn't about me, Brian Goll, as an individual mentor. It was about how my mentors and my mentees shaped me and how their insight um, allowed me to grow and develop in my ability to listen and to respond in a way that produces growth and change. I now want to transition into my assessment of the impact mentoring program overall. My overall experience with the Impact Mentoring Program was so beneficial. I will be completely candid with you. I was skeptical of this at first. I thought that I had very little insight to communicate. I thought that because I took a semester off from this program and I didn't graduate with my initial cohort, that I didn't have much value to share. Um, but again, what was problematic about that approach is that I was centering a good mentor on me. In other words, I was trying to approach mentorship through only the lens of what I can provide, not what I can receive and what I can take in from others. And so I just found that through my mentees and my mentors, I became enlightened by what they had to share, by how our stories, our different stories that we have within this program, have an ability to connect us, to motivate us, and to inspire us. And by sharing with my mentees as to why I took a break from the program, I found that vulnerability is perhaps one of the most critical ingredients to mentorship. Because the reality is, mentees want to see you in a position where you don't necessarily have it all together. I think one of the most important parts that this impact mentoring program taught me is that it's so important that we humanize one another. That simply because we are in a position of a mentor, that is merely a title. It's merely a title. The importance of a mentor is what he or she does with that title, meaning, how do we find ways to tangibly and thoughtfully serve those around us? And so, those reminders of what it means to love, to serve, to honor, to respect, that's what I'll take with me from this impact mentoring program. Baylor's program prepared me as a mentor because I had to deal with adversity. I had experience of what it was like to get knocked down and to have to get back up again. I had to practice academic intellectual resiliency, and I got to communicate that. And to do that in a vulnerable and honest way was a way that I was able to connect with my mentees. If I didn't have that experience of falling short, of getting knocked down, then I don't think I would have connected with my mentees as authentically as I did. And I have Baylor's program to thank for that because it pushed me. It inspired me to be better. And even when it knocked me down, I had such loving people in my corner to rally me back up. Perhaps my favorite high of the mentoring experience had to have been my collaboration with Jessica and Suzanne. I thought Jessica put together one of the greatest presentations with how to deal and respond to feedback in a way that contributes to growth and that helps you achieve your intentions and goals within your pop writing. I thought Suzanne did a marvelous job with her communication about the journey of the lit review and how the lit review is designed to communicate a story, one that people want to be a part of and continue to read. And then I think one of the other parts I came to find that I really enjoyed was getting to share my experience in data collection and how when we allow the narratives of others to inform our approach to data collection, then we really get to be storytellers. And I was fortunate enough to be able to put together a story about that. Perhaps some of the lows of the mentoring experience, to be honest, there weren't many. I found this to be such an uplifting and beneficial time in my leadership development and my servant leadership development. But perhaps the lows might have been when we had sessions right after they had a pop 1 and 2 session. Our mentees were often a bit fatigued when they had to follow class with a session with their mentors, and that was initially a bit challenging. But usually it was only the first maybe 5 or 10 minutes that was a bit stilted and awkward until we kind of reached a kind of relational comfort with each other. And then we were able to overcome that initial challenge. So really that that's really the only low that I came across is just moments where it was maybe a tad difficult to engage or motivate our mentees to participate as thoroughly as maybe what we would have liked. But that only happened maybe a few times. The strengths about this mentoring program, I think truthfully, it's so beneficial for our mentees to see us struggle, to hear our story, to hear how we had to go through difficult times, and that intellectual struggle is a necessary, vital, critical component to growth. And it's one thing for a professor to communicate that to his or her students. I think it's another thing for someone who is just in the trenches of the program to communicate that. I felt like the messaging that Suzanne, Jessica, and I offered about intellectual adversity and resiliency really resonated with our mentees because it wasn't long ago that we were in the trenches that they're in. When it comes to opportunities for growth with this impact mentoring program, I would just have really liked an opportunity to really develop deeper relationships earlier on. I understand you're only able to do that to some degree, and that every initial interaction might be superficial somewhat, but I would have looking back, I would have been a bit more intentional and dedicated in trying to get to know my mentees more authentically. Now, having said that, I think that within our actual sessions, we were able to make up some of that relational ground that maybe was lacking earlier on. What I really appreciate about the Impact Mentoring program is that it taught me the value of iterative feedback and ongoing feedback. And I applied this insight to my workplace mentoring project of how I found that for my workplace mentoring project to really take hold and to develop, that I really need to be more mindful about the timing that I elicit feedback from the participants in my workplace mentoring project, in my workplace mentoring program. I know Suzanne, Jessica, and I were very intentional about receiving feedback from all of our mentees after every single mentoring session. And by doing that, we were able to reflect on the previous session and and use their feedback to inform future sessions to make sure that we were doing all that we could to reach our mentees exactly where they were throughout their current or during their current pop journey. Well, this comes to the end of my presentation here about my time in Baylor's program and my time as an impact mentor. And so this is life after graduation. So now what? I've spent 3.5 years in this program, and the proverbial question of so now what is finally upon me. I think of the skills that I've harnessed and developed as a mentor and during my time in Baylor, and I recognize that I've grown in my ability to listen and my ability to understand that I don't have it all together. I don't have all the answers. I have some significant weaknesses as a leader. I have areas that are embarrassingly poor as a leader. But I think there's such value in recognizing that, and I'm not as embarrassed to admit that anymore. And so one of the skills that I'm really trying to develop now, looking ahead, is how can I continue to grow as a listener? And more importantly, how can I use my ability to listen to inform a vision for the future, a vision for a future job that I might have, a vision for creating a culture if I'm fortunate enough to become an administrator one day at a school. This ability to listen contributes to so many different skills. I know what it takes to be organized, to communicate, to think, but the ability to listen underpins everything else that we do in academia. And so I want to continue to make strides in my ability to listen, to admit what I don't know, and to understand that there is strength in admitting what you don't know and admitting weaknesses that you might possess. I know moving forward, Jessica, Suzanne, and I are intentional about maintaining relationships, not just with each other, but with the mentees that we had the great privilege of working with. Um, we already got each other's phone numbers and we've sent a few texts back and forth. And I hope that they develop a sense of comfort with me that when they do hit an intellectual obstacle, an academic challenge in the near future, that they feel comfortable reaching out to me. And I'll also be checking in with them. One of the most critical ingredients to maintaining relationships is making sure that we set aside time to cultivate them, to nourish them, to develop them. And I plan on doing that and holding myself accountable to that um, as best as I can. My plan to continue to develop as a mentor and leader in my community, number one, is I'm going to make sure that I take a bit of a breather after this. It's been a long 3.5 years. It's been grueling, to be frank. And so the only way I can develop as a mentor is understanding when I have the right degree of energy, the right level of energy to be able to serve and love others really well. And I know for at least the next few months, I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to breathe and I'm going to reconnect with family and with friends and to go and explore the world a little bit, to reflect on all that this program offered me, all that I learned along the way, what I learned about service, about relationships, about leadership, and I want to use all that. And I know that there is a growing list of books that I want to gradually mark off and internalize along the way. Before I started this program, I was an avid reader where I was reading at least a book a week, and I want to return to that and focus on literature that speaks to the value of servant leadership and mentorship and how I can continue to develop a toolkit of skills through which I can serve others. It has been an absolute privilege to be a part of this program. As I look at the image on the screen, I think of the time and the effort and the challenge of reaching my mountaintop. And even though I'll have the title of doctorate or doctor, it's just a title. It's merely a title. Yes, it indicates hard work, but it indicates how incredible my community was that helped me get to this point. I am forever grateful to my Baylor family, to my professors, and to the friends I made along the way. And this has been an absolute privilege to get to share my journey with you of how mentoring and supervision was the perfect culminating course for me. And I hope to make my professors and my Baylor colleagues proud by how I love, serve, and honor others in the years to come. Thank you so much for this opportunity to share. And I pray that all of you listening continue to be very mindful and to continue to find ways to develop a heart of service. Thank you so much.